Hey everyone, thanks for checking out our training video on the Aviom A640. In this video I'm going to try to go through the most basic functionality of the unit, explain some of the controls and how they've maybe changed from the old ones. The most basic form of function on this device is select what you want to adjust and turn the volume up or down with this right hand knob. You'll see on the screen that the level is changing. The other option available to you is to use this left-hand knob to scroll through the inputs, and you'll see that the light is changing on the buttons and the names on the screen are changing. So if you want to, you could work left to right and make your adjustments fairly quickly using this method. Moving up to the next section of the unit, we have this screen here that gives us a lot of useful information. For one, it tells us the name of the channel that is selected, which is quite handy. We also can see in this view all of the levels of all of these inputs. This is very helpful to have a quick reference of if you feel like you're not hearing something and you realize, oh, it's just because the acoustic is turned way down. It's just a very quick reference tool. At the bottom of the screen, we have the solo, mute, and group buttons. These do their traditional function in the audio sense in that you can solo a singular channel, you can mute or turn off a singular channel, and you can group several channels together. As a general rule, I'm going to say that we probably don't need these in our context, and I would caution you from using them. If you need to turn a channel off, my suggestion would be to just turn it all the way down. I would like to make quick mention of the naming convention across the bottom here for these channels. Most of these are self-explanatory. We see drums, bass, acoustic, electric. Right here we have tracks. This is any of the backtrack material that we play with from the playback computer, virtual instruments, things of that nature. We have this shorthand for talkback and MD. This is where our worship leader's talkback is located, his panic button, as well as the music director when we have a music director on the team. Channels 9 through 11 are miscellaneous channels, represented by MISC 1 through 3. That is where we'll put instruments that aren't with us on a regular basis, like a violin or maybe an extra acoustic guitar. These are named as Vox 1 through 4, but Vox is just a shorthand in the sound world for vocals. We have the dump channel. This is a catch-all. The speaking microphones for the teachers are here. Anytime we just need to send an extra piece of information to your guys' mix, that will be located here. And last but not least, kind of set aside from everything else, is where our click track and cue track lives. So this is the metronome and the song section cues. Next, over here on the left, we have an intercom button. We will not be using that function. To the right of that is the Ambience button. This is where our room microphones or ambient microphones are located. To adjust this, simply press twice, and it will open this menu on the screen. We're going to ignore and not mess with this low volume setting. I'm not going to get into why. It just doesn't work well for our usage case. We're simply going to use this high volume adjustment. If this light is off, the channel is also off. You will not hear the ambient microphones. So to enable it, we'll press it. We'll see that the light illuminates, and we would now hear the ambient microphones in our mix, and we could adjust accordingly. To get out of this view, simply press this button twice again, or select another input across the bottom to get back to our normal mix view. Continuing up the unit, we have a save and recall button. These are to save your mix preset to any of these channels across the bottom. To do that, you simply push save. You'll see all of these 16 buttons begin to blink, and you select one. I'm a drummer, so I'm going to save it on the drums, and it tells us that it saved it to preset 1. Typically, you would do that at the end of the night or once you're happy with your mix for the evening at rehearsal. Then, on Sunday morning, when we come in to do our sound check, you'll simply select recall. You'll see that these lights all blink again, and you'll choose the channel that you wish to recall. In this case, I save to the drums. I will press it, and it has recalled preset 1. In this section, we have two knobs. One is the aux volume. That is not something that we will be using. Next is this master volume knob. So for our instrumentalists, this is the volume control for your headphone cable where you plug in your in-ears. You can adjust the master volume of your entire mix up or down with this knob. As a general rule, we want to make sure that this is at least at half volume. So when you come in and start getting going, make sure that this somehow did not get turned down below half. For our vocalists in the sanctuary on our front row, we have 4 wireless in-ear packs. For those of you using those, the knob on the top of that pack acts as your master volume. This will not control the headphone level of your wireless pack. You must use the volume knob on the pack itself. Finally, in this section, we have the Master EQ menu. If we select this option, you'll see that the screen brings up some controls that are specific to the master output of the unit. We have a treble tone control, a bass tone control, and an enhance control. If you're not familiar with what some of these things will do, I would suggest you leave them as they are set. However, if you want to make adjustments, you use this left encoder. You may press it to move the cursor to the selected section, and then use this knob to adjust these parameters up or down. Some of the stuff across the bottom, don't worry about that. We're not going to get into that at this time. To get out of this menu, you may either select the Master EQ button again to come back to the mix window, or you may pick a channel across the bottom, which will again bring you back to the mix view. One last control that I would like to talk about relating to the master volume is the Trim All function, which we can see here labeled on the mute and group buttons. What this function does is it turns down all of the inputs equally when you press these 2 buttons simultaneously. You'll see on the screen when I depress these, it says Trim All -3 dB. This function is very useful if you have an input that you've turned up all the way and it still is not loud enough. That might happen if this master volume is turned below halfway, as I mentioned earlier. If you find yourself in this unfortunate situation, you may use the Trim All function to turn down all of the inputs equally, which therefore does not change the level and balance of your mix. Now you may increase this master volume back to a comfortable level, and now you'll see that we have room to turn up this input that we needed more volume from on the screen. Since it has often been a struggle to figure out where to start when creating an Aviom mix, I have created a default template that I want us to use as our starting point each Thursday. To recall this, we're going to go to the Mixer Setup menu. Using this right knob, we're going to select File Transfer by pressing down. We're going to scroll down to Recall Configuration by rotating this knob, and then press to select. And then we will select Default as the configuration. Doing this will reset the Aviom to a really good foundational point for beginning your mix. It will fix any errors in the configuration or any maybe odd things that the previous person had done, so that you're not having to troubleshoot those when you start. To get off of this screen, press any of these buttons twice, and now we can begin crafting our in-ear mix. The first step in creating a good in-ear mix is to ensure that I can hear myself before I begin mixing the other band members around me. For this example, I am a drummer, so we will use the drums mix as our starting point. I will first check that my master volume is at least above half, and then begin to play my instrument at a performance level while adjusting the level of my instrument to what is comfortable for my in-ears. If you find that you're going beyond about 3/4 of the way up on an individual input, you may want to increase your master volume to a comfortable level before you continue mixing the other inputs. I'd like to give a quick explanation on what I mean by performance volume. Oftentimes, if a vocalist or an instrumentalist checks their instrument, we just kind of lightly pluck on the strings, or we maybe just say, check, check, 1, 2, as a vocalist. Doing those things, we're not playing or singing or speaking at the volume that we would when we are performing, and therefore we end up setting our level way too loud to begin, and the moment everybody starts playing, we get kind of blown away in our headphones because now everything has doubled in volume. So if you're a drummer, play the drums like you mean it. If you're a guitar player, set your setting to your loudest setting. If you're a singer, sing a big chorus of a song just with yourself in order to get a good bass level for your mix. Now that you feel comfortable with how you're hearing yourself, you can begin to add the other instruments in the band around you. Simply select and make adjustments and pick the things that you need to hear in your specific role. After you feel comfortable with your mix as a whole, go ahead and save it to the channel that you are assigned. In this case, as I said before, I'm the drummer. I'm going to press save, and I'm going to select the drum channel. Now I've saved all of my settings as they are. On Sunday morning, when we come in to do sound check, we need to use the recall function and select the channel that we saved our presets on. Do not use the mixer setup function and recall the default template on a Sunday morning. That is only for Thursdays to get you started at a good foundation for building your mix each week. I'd like to talk about some of the more advanced features that are available to us in the Aviom. For those of you that don't understand things like tonality and reverb and panning, you don't need to mess with any of this stuff. The default template that I have created for you is going to give you a really good mix by just adjusting the volumes. But for those of us that want to go a little bit deeper, we're going to use the View button and change it to the Channel view. In this view, you will see that we have a pan section, we have a treble adjustment, a bass adjustment, and a EFX or effects section. To adjust these parameters, simply use the left knob and turn it to make the adjustment based on where the cursor is selected. To cycle through the different options with the cursor, depress the left button and you will see that it will change which parameter it is making an adjustment to. I'd like to take a second to talk about the panning on these new Avioms. On a mono channel, such as this bass guitar, we simply use this left knob to adjust the pan to either our left ear, our right ear, or anywhere in between, or in the center as represented by the green arrow. On sources that are stereo, such as the keys, electric guitar, drums, the tracks, we have the ability to change the width of the pan as well as the left to right positioning. Where this is a little bit different than the previous units is this unit will automatically cycle through the different options available to you on a stereo source. This can be a little bit confusing, and as a general rule, I would suggest that you leave these panned hard left and right, full stereo width. But if you want to mess around with it, you can see that you can move the stereo image a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. Under no circumstance do I think that you should ever create a mono mix of a stereo input. A quick explanation of the treble and bass settings. On this Aviom, the treble and bass options are purely additive adjustments, meaning that you can either have the signal as it is coming into the Aviom, so at 0, or you may add low end or add treble to any specific input. There is no subtractive EQ adjustments on this unit. The last parameter that we have for adjustment on each individual channel is the effects section. This is essentially a reverb. You really should only be using this on the vocalists and maybe the drums. If you're applying this to any of the other tracks, you're probably hurting your mix by making it more muddy. If you'd like more mixing tips and tricks specific to instrumentalists or vocalists, please see the link in our description.